Your mind will not move with power merely because you wish for a better life. It will move when one desire becomes so definite, so commanding, and so deeply rooted that every weaker thought is forced to make room for it. That is the power of obsession. Not madness, not blind excitement, not emotional frenzy. I speak of a controlled obsession, a burning purpose that takes possession of the imagination, organizes the will, and refuses to let the mind return peacefully to a life beneath its possibility. Until you develop such intensity, your goals will remain polite suggestions. You will think about them when convenient, speak about them when inspired, and abandon them when difficulty enters the room. But when desire becomes an obsession governed by purpose, the whole mind changes its behavior. It begins searching, connecting, remembering, planning, and acting in the direction of the chosen aim. Most men are not defeated because they lack intelligence. They are defeated because their desire is divided. They want wealth, but they also want every comfort that consumes the capital needed to build it. They want mastery, but they also want freedom from repetition. They want influence, but they fear criticism. They want a greater life, but they remain emotionally loyal to the habits of the smaller one. Their minds receive conflicting commands. Move forward. Remain safe. Become powerful. Avoid discomfort. Build something uncommon. Continue living like the common man. No mind can produce concentrated action under such divided authority. You must choose what will rule. A mind without a dominant purpose becomes a servant to circumstances. It is moved by whatever feeling speaks loudest in the moment. A little fear changes the plan. A little praise creates vanity. A little delay produces doubt. A little comfort weakens urgency. Such a mind may possess great ability, yet ability without concentration is scattered force. 1,000 drops spread across the ground may leave no mark, but the same water driven through a narrow channel can cut stone. Obsession creates that channel. It gathers your mental force around one central aim. When the aim becomes dominant, you begin seeing the world differently. You notice information that once seemed unimportant. You remember names, facts, methods, and opportunities connected to your purpose. A sentence in a book suddenly carries weight. A passing conversation suggests an answer. A problem others complain about becomes material for invention. The world has not necessarily changed. Your attention has changed. And attention is the gate through which opportunity enters consciousness. This is why two men may stand in the same room and leave with entirely different futures. One sees only what is obvious. The other sees a connection to the purpose that has taken possession of his mind. One hears ordinary talk. The other hears a need waiting to be served. One sees difficulty. The other sees a problem worthy of solution. Obsession does not create every opportunity, but it trains the mind to recognize the opportunities related to its command. Therefore, do not say you lack opportunity until you have first examined the weakness of your desire. A weak desire sees little because it asks little of the mind. It appears for a moment, then disappears beneath worry, entertainment, habit, and the opinions of others. The mind has no reason to organize itself around a wish that its owner does not treat seriously. But a burning desire returns morning and evening. It asks questions. It studies failure. It searches for allies. It measures progress. It refuses to be forgotten. The subconscious mind responds to repetition charged with emotion. A thought repeated without feeling may remain only a sentence. A thought repeated with belief, desire, and definite intention begins sinking deeper. It becomes an instruction. This is why men often move more powerfully under fear than under ambition. Fear is usually emotional, repeated, and vivid. The man sees the feared result. He feels it. He rehearses it. Then he wonders why his mind produces hesitation. He has been giving the subconscious a clear command. You must reverse that command. Place the desired result before your mind with equal force. See it not as idle fantasy, but as a definite objective requiring definite conduct. Name it. Give it measure. Give it a reason strong enough to survive delay. Write down what you intend to achieve, what service you will render in exchange, what time you will devote, what habits must be abandoned, and what action begins now. Vagueness cannot create obsession. The mind cannot become possessed by a fog. A definite purpose gives desire a body. Do not say, I want to succeed. Success in what? Through what service? At what cost? Under what principles? By what date will the first measurable result appear? The man who cannot answer these questions has not yet given the mind a command. He has given it a pleasant dream. Dreams become power only when tied to decision. Decision marks the moment desire stops asking permission. The man says, this is the direction. I may correct the method, but I will not surrender the purpose at the first resistance. That statement changes the atmosphere of the mind. It removes many needless debates. It saves the force previously spent wondering whether to continue. Once the purpose has been chosen wisely, the question becomes not whether you will act, but how. How awakens invention. The defeated mind asks, can this be done? And allows fear to answer. The obsessed mind asks, how can this be done? And commands imagination to search. The change seems small, but it is enormous. One question seeks permission to quit. The other seeks a method. The first closes the workshop. The second opens it. Train yourself to ask constructive questions repeatedly. What knowledge is missing? Who has solved a similar problem? What smaller beginning is possible? What skill would remove the present obstacle? What can be tested without risking the whole enterprise? What waste can be eliminated? What value can be increased? These questions force the mind into action because they give thought a definite task. The mind is often lazy only because it has not been properly commanded. Many men sit before a large ambition and wait for inspiration. They say, I do not know where to begin. But the mind cannot begin with the whole mountain. Give it the next ledge. Give it one problem, one page, one meeting, one calculation, 1 hour of concentrated study. Obsession becomes practical through the next definite action. Without action, obsession decays into fantasy. This distinction must be understood. A man may think about wealth every day and still be poor because his thinking is only emotional enjoyment. He imagines the house, the respect, the freedom, and the appearance of success. But he does not study, value, discipline spending, build skill, serve people, or persist through rejection. That is not productive obsession. It is escape. True obsession demands payment. It asks what you will surrender. It asks what you will learn. It asks whether your routine supports your claim. It asks whether your desire is strong enough to govern the morning, the appetite, the tongue, the use of money, and the selection of companions. If the desire changes nothing in your conduct, it has not yet become a ruling force. A definite obsession must enter the schedule. Choose an hour in which the central purpose receives your undivided attention. Do not give it the scraps of the day and expect it to build a fortune. Place before you the materials required. Write the question that must be answered. Decide the result that hour is meant to produce. then remain until the appointed labor is complete. At first, the mind will resist. It has been trained to wander. It will remember minor duties, old conversations, future anxieties, and easier tasks. This is not proof that concentration is impossible. It is proof that concentration has been neglected. Bring the mind back. Then bring it back again. Every return is an act of command. You are teaching the mind that the central purpose possesses authority. Obsession grows through repeated return. You need not feel intense every hour. That is not the requirement. The requirement is loyalty. Return when the work feels powerful. Return when it feels ordinary. Return when the idea seems near. Return when uncertainty has covered it. The man who returns repeatedly gives desire roots. Most men mistake emotion for commitment. They feel a surge of enthusiasm and believe transformation has occurred. They make declarations, design large plans, and imagine rapid victory. Then the emotion fades. Because they built no structure, the whole effort collapses. Productive obsession does not depend upon constant excitement. It uses excitement to begin, then uses discipline to continue. Discipline is obsession made dependable. It means the purpose still receives action when the emotional temperature is low. It means the man does not have to rediscover his reason every morning. The decision has already been made. The ritual begins. The work receives its hour. This steadiness turns desire into accumulated force. And accumulated force produces confidence. Not the loud confidence of a man who has tested nothing, but the quiet confidence of one who has seen himself return. Every promise kept to the purpose becomes evidence. Every difficult hour completed becomes evidence. Every corrected mistake becomes evidence. The man begins trusting himself because he is no longer depending upon mood. This trust is essential because obsession will be tested by delay. The world does not always respond at the speed of desire. You may work while results remain hidden. You may prepare while others appear to advance more quickly. You may plant in a season when there is no visible harvest. This is where weak desire dies. It had secretly demanded immediate proof. Productive obsession continues because it understands the law of accumulation. A tree does not break the soil the hour the seed is planted. Something happens beneath the ground first. The seed opens. Roots move downward. The structure required for visible growth begins forming in darkness. Your purpose may pass through the same stage. Skill is strengthening. Judgment is sharpening. Contacts are being formed. Errors are being exposed. Discipline is becoming character. The crowd sees little, but the foundation is changing. Do not interrupt hidden growth through impatience. The impatient man digs up the seed to see whether it is working. He changes direction too quickly, abandons sound methods before they have matured, and begins again elsewhere. He remains busy but never stays long enough for depth. Obsession protects a man from this restlessness because it ties him to a central purpose. Yet obsession must not make you stubborn about method. This is where disciplined desire differs from blind fixation. The purpose may remain firm while the method changes. If one door closes, study why. If one plan fails, extract the lesson. If evidence reveals weakness, correct it. The obsessed man is not loyal to his first mistake. He is loyal to the result and the principle behind it. Many men defend poor methods because their pride has become involved. They say, "I have already invested too much to change." That is not persistence. It is vanity. True persistence asks what must be preserved and what must be altered. It keeps the destination while improving the road. You must become severe with excuses and flexible with strategy. Excuses protect weakness. Strategy protects purpose. When you say, "I had no time," examine whether the purpose truly possessed priority. When you say, "No one helped me," ask whether you became useful enough to attract cooperation. When you say the conditions were wrong, ask what preparation could have reduced dependence upon those conditions. This form of questioning is not self-punishment. It is recovery of power. As long as the cause of defeat is placed entirely outside you, the remedy also remains outside you. Obsession brings the remedy back under command. It says, "What can I control?" Your study, your conduct, your persistence, your use of time, your choice of associates, your willingness to ask, your ability to improve the offer, your discipline in saving resources, your response to criticism. These things may not control every event, but they control whether you become stronger or weaker through the event. The obsessed mind converts adversity into material. A rejection becomes information. A loss becomes instruction. A delay becomes preparation. A rival becomes evidence of what the field rewards. A criticism becomes either a warning or a test of conviction. Nothing is wasted if it can be studied. This mental habit makes a man difficult to stop. He is not free from disappointment. He simply refuses to let disappointment remain meaningless. He asks what it teaches, what it exposes, and what the next move must be. Then he acts. This is how obsession forces the mind out of paralysis. Paralysis is often the result of looking at the whole burden at once. The man sees the money required, the knowledge missing, the years of work, the possibility of ridicule, and the uncertainty of reward. The weight becomes so large that he does nothing. Productive obsession narrows attention. It says, "Today, this." It forces the hand toward one definite duty. Do not underestimate the power of one completed duty. One letter sent may begin a relationship. 1 hour of study may reveal the missing principle. One saved sum may become the beginning of capital. One difficult conversation may remove months of confusion. One page may become the foundation of a book. The future enters through small doors. Obsession keeps knocking. It refuses to let the size of the beginning insult the size of the vision. It understands that every large force begins in concentrated form. The great fire begins with a spark. The powerful enterprise begins with a decision. The respected name begins with one act of responsibility performed well. Therefore, stop waiting to feel like the man you intend to become. Act as that man would act in the present duty. If he would study, study. If he would save, save. If he would speak with courage, speak. If he would refuse the waste, refuse it. Identity follows repeated conduct. The man you desire to become is built through the actions you are postponing. This is why obsession must be renewed daily. Read your purpose. Speak it with conviction. Review the reason beneath it. See the result? Then immediately connect the result to action. Do not end with imagination. Ask, what will I do today that proves this purpose governs me? Without this question, visualization can become self-deception. The proof of desire is movement, and as movement continues, the mind begins acquiring momentum. Decisions become quicker. Relevant facts appear more clearly. Weak habits become more offensive. You begin feeling tension whenever conduct falls beneath a central purpose. That tension is useful. It is evidence that the mind has started accepting a new command, but this command must now penetrate deeper than action alone. It must enter belief, self-image, and the hidden language through which you explain yourself to yourself. Because a man may perform the right actions for a season and still be pulled backward if beneath those actions he continues believing he is weak, unlucky, unworthy, or destined to fail. And that is where the power of obsession must go next, into the deepest chamber of the mind, where belief is formed and where every outward action receives either permission or resistance before the world ever sees it. And once obsession enters that deepest chamber, it begins confronting the silent beliefs that have been governing your conduct without permission. This is where the real battle is fought. A man may speak boldly in public, work diligently for several weeks, and appear determined, yet beneath the surface he may still believe that success belongs to other men. He may still expect disappointment. He may still interpret delay as proof that he is not capable, not fortunate, or not meant to rise. These hidden beliefs act like invisible brakes. The body moves, but the mind resists. The man advances, then unconsciously creates a reason to retreat. He calls it circumstance, bad timing, or exhaustion. But often it is the old self-image defending its territory. You must attack that image deliberately. Do not permit the memory of past failure to become a prophecy. Failure is an event. It is not an identity. Weak men take one defeat, one rejection, one humiliation, and build an entire philosophy around it. They say, "This is what always happens to me. I am not the kind of man who succeeds. Whenever I try, something goes wrong." These statements are not harmless descriptions. They are commands. Repeated often enough, they teach the mind what to expect and how to behave. Obsession must replace that language with law. Say, "I may have failed, but I am not finished. I may be untrained, but I can be trained. I may be behind, but I can still move. The method may have failed, but the purpose remains." These are not empty words when joined to conduct. They are declarations of direction. They tell the mind that yesterday is no longer the sole authority over tomorrow. You must understand how the mind accepts identity. It does not accept identity from one dramatic statement alone. It accepts identity through repetition supported by evidence. If you say, "I am disciplined," then break every promise to yourself, the deeper mind will believe the conduct, not the sentence. If you say, "I am courageous," but continually avoid the necessary action, the mind records avoidance. Therefore, do not merely speak a stronger identity. Prove it through small acts. Every completed act becomes testimony. Rise when you said you would rise. Finish what you said you would finish. Keep one promise that the old self would have broken. Refuse one temptation that once ruled you. Each act says to the mind, "The government has changed." The action may appear small, but repeated evidence gradually destroys the old image. This is why obsession must be tied to standards. A man cannot maintain a powerful obsession while living by weak standards. His conduct will continually contradict his purpose. He will declare greatness in the morning and tolerate carelessness by noon. Such contradiction divides the mind. The stronger desire says, "Advance." The weaker habit says, "Remain as you are." To end this conflict, establish standards that support the identity required by the goal. Ask yourself what the man capable of your purpose would refuse. Would he waste the best hour of the day on trivial matters? Would he spend money to impress men who contribute nothing to his future? Would he permit resentment to consume creative energy? Would he remain in company that mocks discipline? Would he speak carelessly about his plans and then wonder why a force has leaked away? The answer is clear. Stop waiting to become that man later. Begin enforcing his standards now. Standards create self-respect. Self-respect does not come from praise. It comes from agreement between what you claim and how you live. When conduct begins matching purpose, the mind becomes less divided. Confidence grows because you are no longer presenting one face to the world and another to yourself. But understand this, the old identity will not surrender quietly. It will use comfort. It will remind you how difficult the new standard feels. It will say, one missed day will not matter. One excuse is harmless. You have worked hard enough. Sometimes rest is necessary, but the old identity often uses the language of rest to reintroduce drift. You must learn the difference between restoration and retreat. Rest restores your ability to return. Retreat weakens the decision to return. If you finish a period of rest with greater clarity and strength, it served the purpose. If you finish it with more confusion, more delay, and less command, it may have been escape. Obsession does not mean denying the mind and body proper renewal. It means refusing to let renewal become surrender. The same discipline must govern emotion. You will not always feel powerful. Some days the purpose will seem alive and near. Other days it will feel distant. If you make action dependent upon feeling, obsession will never gain authority. Feelings are weather. Purpose is direction. A wise captain observes the weather, but does not allow every change of wind to choose a destination. When discouragement appears, do not hold a meeting with it. Do not sit for hours asking whether it is correct. Return to evidence. Read the purpose. Review what has already been completed. Examine the next duty. Then act. Action is often the quickest argument against discouragement because it produces fresh evidence of control. The mind becomes strong through obedience to worthy command. You may say, but what if I no longer believe? Belief is not always restored through thought alone. Sometimes belief returns after movement. The man who takes one step discovers he can take another. The man who completes 1 hour of work regains possession of himself. The man who faces one fear learns that fear exaggerated its authority. Do not wait for complete belief. Act upon the portion you possess. Even a small amount of belief joined to definite action can grow. Belief is like fire. It strengthens when fed. The fuel is evidence, repetition, association, and progress. Keep these near. Association is especially important because minds influence one another. If you continually sit among men who ridicule ambition, excuse weakness, and speak of defeat as though it were wisdom, your obsession will be taxed every day. Their words may not destroy it immediately, but repeated exposure will cool desire. They will call discipline extreme, faith foolish, and concentrated ambition dangerous because your effort exposes their surrender. Choose your associations with care. You do not need companions who praise every idea. You need men who respect purpose, tell the truth, and understand effort. A strong alliance can save years. One man may possess knowledge you lack. Another may see a weakness your enthusiasm concealed. Another may lend courage when the road becomes uncertain. When minds meet around a definite purpose, they can produce a force greater than any one mind alone. But do not seek alliance before you have something to contribute. A mastermind is not a gathering of needy men, hoping one person will carry the rest. Each member must bring value, knowledge, experience, discipline, judgment, imagination, contacts, or faithful labor. The relationship becomes powerful when every man enters asking not only, what can I receive, but also, what can I strengthen? Obsession makes cooperation effective because it gives cooperation direction. Without a clear purpose, meetings become talk. Opinions multiply. Responsibility becomes vague. But when the aim is definite, every discussion can be judged by whether it advances the cause. This saves time and prevents personality from becoming more important than the work. You must also guard against the desire to explain yourself to everyone. A man possessed by purpose often feels compelled to speak about the vision because speaking creates temporary relief. But repeated explanation can spend energy that should enter action. Some men describe the mountain so often that they mistake description for climbing. Keep enough of the vision private to preserve its heat. Let results explain what words cannot yet prove. Speak when instruction, cooperation, capital, or responsibility require speech. Otherwise, work. The seed does not announce every movement beneath the soil. It grows until the ground must acknowledge it. Silence also protects you from premature criticism. An undeveloped idea can be easily injured because the creator has not yet gathered enough evidence to defend it. This does not mean hiding forever. It means giving the work sufficient form before exposing it to every opinion. Seek qualified criticism, not careless reaction. Obsession must be intelligent enough to welcome correction. A man who cannot distinguish between criticism of himself and criticism of his method will remain weak. If a method is poor, change it. If communication is unclear, improve it. If preparation is insufficient, strengthen it. Correction does not insult the purpose. It serves the purpose. Pride says, I must be right. Obsession says, the purpose must succeed. That difference keeps a man teachable. He can admit error without abandoning courage. He can hear hard truth without collapsing into shame. He is too committed to the result to protect every mistake. Now examine the role of imagination. Obsession uses imagination not merely to see the final reward, but to rehearse conduct. Picture yourself performing the difficult act, speaking with calm authority, continuing after rejection, managing money wisely, rising at the appointed hour, returning to work when the first attempt fails. This mental rehearsal prepares the mind for action, but imagination must remain connected to reality. If you visualize only applause, wealth, comfort, and recognition, you may become attached to reward while remaining unprepared for the process. See the labor too. See yourself handling delay. See yourself correcting the work. See yourself resisting temptation. A true vision includes the price. When you accept the price in imagination, resistance loses some of its surprise. You stop saying, I did not know it would be this hard. You knew difficulty would appear. You had already decided how you would meet it. This does not remove pain, but it prevents pain from becoming an argument against the goal. Obsession should also strengthen the power of decision. Indecision drains more force than many men realize. A matter is considered in the morning, reopened at noon, feared in the evening, and carried into the next day. No action is taken, yet great energy is spent. Decide when the facts are sufficient. Do not confuse speed with carelessness. Gather the necessary facts. Seek experienced counsel when needed. Compare the possible consequences. Then choose. Once chosen, move. A decision without movement is merely another thought. If later evidence proves the method poor, correct it. But do not remain imprisoned by the demand for certainty. Certainty is often available only after action has produced experience. The man who waits for every doubt to disappear will be overtaken by men willing to learn while moving. This is where obsession becomes momentum. One decision leads to action. Action produces information. Information improves judgment. Improved judgment leads to stronger action. The cycle gathers speed. What once felt difficult begins becoming natural because the mind has stopped reopening the same debate. Momentum must be protected from interruption. Not every request deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every problem deserves your emotional involvement. A central obsession requires boundaries. If you allow every person to claim a piece of your best energy, your purpose will receive only what remains. Learn to say no without guilt. No to work that distracts from the central aim. No to habits that dull thought. No to company that feeds weakness. No to expenditures that steal future freedom. Every worthy yes requires many no's. This is not narrowness. It is concentration. A lens gathers scattered light into heat. Your mind must do the same. The more force you gather around a definite purpose, the more power you possess to penetrate difficulty. Scattered interest produces scattered results. Concentrated desire produces command. Yet concentration must not become blindness to health, integrity, or duty. A destructive obsession consumes the man and harms everything entrusted to him. A productive obsession organizes him. It makes him more reliable, not less. More disciplined, not more chaotic. More useful, not more selfish. If your obsession requires dishonesty, betrayal, neglect of essential duty, or the destruction of your body, it is not power under law. It is appetite without government. The highest obsession is always tied to service. Ask what value your purpose will create. Whose burden will it reduce? What problem will it solve? What improvement will it bring? Wealth and recognition may follow, but service gives obsession moral strength. A goal centered only upon personal glory becomes fragile because it depends heavily upon praise. A goal tied to useful contribution can continue even when applause is absent. Service also reveals the next action. When confused, ask what would increase usefulness. Improve the product. Strengthen the skill. Clarify the message. Keep the promise. Reduce waste. Make the result more reliable. These acts move obsession out of fantasy and into value. And value attracts cooperation. Men are willing to assist a purpose that creates mutual benefit. Capital moves toward sound opportunity. Trust moves toward consistent character. Influence moves toward demonstrated usefulness. The obsessed man does not beg endlessly for recognition. He builds something recognition must eventually notice, but he must remain patient while building. There will be seasons when the work is stronger than the reward. Do not interpret that imbalance as injustice too quickly. It may be the training period in which capacity is expanding. Keep records. Study progress. Correct weakness. Continue serving. Reward often follows visible proof, and visible proof requires time. During that time, guard your inner speech. Never allow temporary conditions to name you. Do not say, "I am poor," when the truth is that your present resources are limited. Do not say, "I am defeated," when the truth is that one method failed. Do not say, "I am forgotten," when the truth is that recognition has not yet arrived. Language either imprisons or directs the mind. Speak accurately and constructively. Accuracy prevents fantasy. Constructive language prevents despair. Say, "The resources are limited. Therefore, I must become more inventive." The method failed. Therefore, I must study the cause. Recognition is absent. Therefore, the work must become stronger and the service clearer. Such language turns conditions into assignments. Assignments awaken action. And action is the proof that obsession has entered belief, self-image, association, decision, and daily conduct. When every part of the mind begins serving the same purpose, a man gains unusual force. He no longer needs to be pushed from the outside. The purpose pushes from within. But even this force will be tested by the most dangerous mistake of all, the temptation to confuse intensity with direction, to burn fiercely without building wisely, and to spend the whole man before the purpose has been given time to mature. That is where obsession must now be brought under its highest law, so the fire does not consume the instrument, but becomes enduring power capable of carrying the purpose through years of resistance. And if the fire is to become enduring power capable of carrying your purpose through years of resistance, you must learn to govern intensity before intensity governs you. Many men awaken a strong desire, throw their whole strength into it for a brief season, neglect judgment, rest, order, and proportion, then collapse under the weight of their own excess. They call this devotion. It is not devotion. It is force without command. A furnace does not become useful merely because it burns hot. The heat must be contained, directed, and made to serve a definite purpose. Otherwise, the same fire that could have shaped iron will destroy the workshop. Your obsession must be powerful, but it must also be lawful. A lawful obsession does not scatter you into frantic activity. It concentrates you into intelligent action. It does not demand that every hour feel urgent. It teaches you which hour matters most. It does not make you chase every possible road. It helps you reject roads that lead away from the central aim. It does not destroy your judgment. It sharpens judgment by giving the mind one definite standard against which every choice may be measured. Ask of every action, does this strengthen the purpose, prepare the instrument, or produce useful movement? If the answer is no, then the action may be noise, no matter how busy it makes you appear. Busyness is one of the most deceptive enemies of obsession. A man may fill the day with letters, meetings, plans, errands, conversation, and minor duties, then go to bed believing he has worked for his goal. But activity is not always advancement. Sometimes it is avoidance wearing a respectable coat. The difficult task remains untouched, while easier tasks create the feeling of industry. Productive obsession identifies the central act. There is always one duty that carries more weight than the others, one conversation that must be held, one proposal that must be written, one weakness that must be corrected, one skill that must be developed, one decision that has been postponed. Find it. Place it before lesser work. Do not permit minor duties to consume the courage required for major action. The mind prefers completion over importance. It enjoys crossing off small tasks because each one produces quick satisfaction. The great task often offers no immediate reward. It may demand hours of concentration before any result appears. Therefore, you must decide its importance before the day begins. If you wait until the day is crowded, the important work will be pushed aside by whatever appears most urgent. Obsession must create priority before pressure creates confusion. This requires a written plan. Do not trust the unorganized mind to remember the true order of the day once demands begin arriving. Write the central purpose. Beneath it, write the one action that would move it forward. Then write the lesser duties. This simple arrangement places authority on paper. It reminds you that the day does not belong equally to every demand. A man without written priority becomes a servant of interruption. He reacts to whoever speaks loudest. He handles whatever appears first. He mistakes another person's urgency for his own duty. By evening, he has spent himself on matters that may have maintained the present but built nothing toward the future. The obsessed man must protect construction time. There are duties that preserve life as it is, and duties that create life as it may become. Both have value, but if maintenance consumes every hour, the future receives no investment. Therefore, appoint a period for construction. During that period, you are not merely answering the world. You are shaping what the world will later answer. Protect that period with firmness. Some men will not understand. They may interpret concentration as distance, discipline as severity, and refusal as pride. Do not become rude, but do not become weak. Every serious purpose requires a gate. Without a gate, everything enters, and soon the central work is buried beneath the demands of men who possess no responsibility for your destiny. Yet, while protecting your time, do not become blind to duty. A lawful obsession does not give a man permission to neglect promises, abandon those dependent upon him, or use ambition as an excuse for selfishness. It teaches order. It asks him to meet essential responsibilities with greater efficiency so that waste no longer steals the force needed for creation. The man becomes more dependable because his life is no longer ruled by confusion. Order increases endurance. A man who lives without order spends energy deciding the same matters repeatedly. He searches for misplaced tools, repairs preventable mistakes, rushes to meet forgotten obligations, and works under pressure created by his own neglect. Then he says the purpose is exhausting him. Often the purpose is not exhausting him. Disorder is. Obsession must therefore enter the smallest arrangements of life. Prepare the materials before work begins. Keep records. Honor appointments. Decide where important information belongs. Review the next day before the present day closes. These actions may appear far removed from great ambition, but they preserve mental force. The mind works more freely when it is not continually dragged back to correct avoidable disorder. This is how intensity becomes endurance. Endurance does not mean living at the highest emotional pitch. No man can remain there. Endurance means maintaining effective action through changing emotional conditions. Some days will be strong. Some days will be slow. The purpose must receive movement in both. Learn to work without drama. Do not make every difficulty a crisis. Do not interpret every weekday as a collapse. Do not speak of every obstacle as though destiny itself has turned against you. Such exaggeration wastes power. State the facts plainly. What happened? What cause produced it? What correction is required? Then continue. The obsessed mind must become calm under resistance. Calmness is not lack of desire. It is desire with confidence in its own continuity. The frantic man fears that everything must happen now because he does not trust himself to remain faithful tomorrow. The disciplined man can be patient because he knows he will return. He does not have to force the whole result into one day. This patience allows better judgment. When men become desperate, they accept poor agreements, reveal too much, spend too quickly, and trust too easily. They mistake any movement for progress. A strong obsession must never be allowed to become desperation. Desire says, I intend to create this result. Desperation says, this result must appear immediately or I am nothing. The first produces endurance. The second produces weakness. Your identity must not depend entirely upon immediate success. You are more than the present condition of one undertaking. If you attach your whole worth to one result, fear will corrupt judgment. Every delay will feel like personal rejection. Every criticism will feel like an attack upon your existence. You will be unable to examine the work honestly because the work has become too closely tied to your need for dignity. Separate identity from method, but connect identity to character. Say, I am the kind of man who learns, persists, serves, and corrects. That identity can survive a failed method. It can survive delay. It can survive a closed door. It does not depend upon pretending every effort will succeed. It depends upon knowing that every honest effort can increase capacity. This makes obsession resilient. A resilient obsession does not shatter when the original plan changes. It asks what remains true. The purpose may still be sound. The need may still exist. The service may still possess value. Only the route has failed. Then find another route. History is filled with men who reached their purpose through methods they did not imagine at the beginning. They began with one plan, encountered facts, corrected assumptions, formed new alliances, and discovered a road that could not have been seen before movement began. The man demanding a complete map before the first step would never have found it. Action reveals roads, but action must be studied. Do not simply move and call movement wisdom. At regular intervals, stop and review. What is producing value? What is consuming force without return? Which assumptions have been confirmed? Which have been contradicted? Where is the work improving? Where is it repeating error? Obsession without review becomes blind labor. The man continues because stopping to examine feels like doubt. But examination is not betrayal. It is intelligence serving desire. A captain checks direction not because he has abandoned the destination, but because he intends to reach it. Set a definite time for review. Do not question the whole purpose every hour. Constant doubt prevents depth. Work for the appointed period, gather evidence, then examine at the proper time. This prevents temporary frustration from passing judgment over a long-range aim. During review, be severe with facts and gentle with ego. Do not bend evidence to protect pride. If the work is weak, admit it. If the public does not understand the value, improve communication. If the cost is unsound, change the structure. If your skill is insufficient, seek training. Truth is not your enemy. It is the instrument through which obsession becomes effective. The strongest desire welcomes accurate measurement. Measure what matters. A writer may measure completed pages, revisions, or hours of deep work. A businessman may measure service, cost, trust, repeat demand, and available capital. A student may measure understanding, recall, and application. Measurement turns vague hope into visible movement. But do not allow numbers to become the only judge. Some progress is qualitative before it becomes quantitative. Judgment may be strengthening. Courage may be growing. The method may be becoming cleaner. A valuable relationship may be forming. These developments matter even before they can be easily counted. Record them, but do not use them as excuses for avoiding measurable results forever. Obsession must eventually produce evidence. The purpose must enter form. The idea must become a plan. The plan must become work. The work must become value. Value must reach those who can use it. This chain cannot remain incomplete. Many men stop at preparation because preparation protects them from judgment. They study endlessly, arrange endlessly, revise endlessly, and say they are perfecting the work. But the work has never met reality. They are obsessed with avoiding exposure, not with producing service. Set a point of release. Decide when the work must be tested. Not when it is perfect, But when it is strong enough to meet reality and teach you something, a manuscript must eventually be read. A product must eventually be offered. A proposal must eventually be presented. A skill must eventually be used under pressure. Reality is the final instructor. It will reveal what private thought could not. The response may be disappointing. Good. Now you possess information. Return to the workshop. Improve the work. Test again. The man who can survive repeated contact with reality without losing purpose develops unusual power. That power is persistence with intelligence. Persistence is not doing the same foolish thing forever. It is refusing to abandon the worthy purpose while continually searching for a more effective method. The rigid man repeats. The persistent man learns. Learn faster than discouragement can harden. Do not leave a failure unexplained. Question it while the details are fresh. What did you expect? What occurred? Where did the difference begin? Was the error in preparation, timing, communication, execution, or judgment? Write the lesson. Then decide what changes. Once the lesson is recorded, stop rehearsing the pain. Some men examine failure, discover the lesson, then continue carrying the emotional wound as though suffering proves seriousness. It does not. After instruction has been taken, release the event. Obsession needs the force you are spending on regret. Regret must become direction. Say, I will not repeat this carelessness. Then establish a rule that makes repetition less likely. If poor records cause loss, create a recording system. If haste caused a weak decision, establish a period of examination before major agreements. If trust was given too quickly, test character through smaller responsibility. Turn every painful lesson into structure. Structure prevents the need for repeated willpower. A rule decided in calmness can govern conduct during emotional pressure. This is another way obsession becomes enduring. The man does not depend upon making a perfect decision in every difficult moment. He builds principles beforehand. Decide what you will never sacrifice for the goal. Never sacrifice integrity. Never sacrifice your word for temporary advantage. Never sacrifice long-term trust for quick gain. Never sacrifice sound health through needless disorder. Never sacrifice essential duty merely to appear ambitious. These boundaries protect both the purpose and the man carrying it. A purpose gained through corruption becomes another form of defeat. You may reach the outward result and lose the inward power required to enjoy, preserve, or use it wisely. Productive obsession strengthens character while creating achievement. If success leaves you less honest, less dependable, and more enslaved to appetite, then the fire has not been governed. You must command desire, not worship it. Desire is a mighty servant and a terrible master. Under principle, it produces concentration, invention, courage, and persistence. Without principle, it produces greed, jealousy, exhaustion, and destruction. The purpose of obsession is not to narrow your humanity until nothing remains but appetite. It is to gather your best powers around a definite service. Service keeps obsession clean. When your aim improves life beyond yourself, difficulty gains meaning. The long hours are no longer merely for personal display. They are building something useful. This makes sacrifice easier to bear and recognition less necessary. Ask repeatedly, who benefits if I succeed? If the answer is only your vanity, the obsession will become fragile. Vanity needs witnesses. Service can continue in silence. Vanity becomes bitter when another man receives credit. Service remains concerned with whether the work produces value. This does not mean refusing reward. Lawful reward is part of exchange. Receive it. Use it wisely. Let wealth increase your ability to create, serve, and remain independent. But never allow reward to replace purpose. The moment money, praise, or position becomes the only fuel, your power becomes dependent upon external response. The strongest obsession generates its own command. You work because the purpose has become part of who you are. You study because ignorance stands between you and the result. You persist because the work deserves completion. Reward may strengthen the enterprise, but it does not create the whole reason for existence. This inner command also protects you from comparison. Comparison scatters obsession by forcing your attention into another man's race. You begin measuring his timing, his recognition, his resources, and his progress. Soon your own work appears smaller, not because it has lost value, but because envy has changed the standard. Study successful men for principles, not for self-punishment. Ask what they did well. Ask what habits, alliances, and decisions produced the result. Then return to your purpose. Another man's harvest does not prove your field is barren. It proves harvest is possible under law. Do not imitate his outward life without understanding his inward causes. You may copy his schedule, speech, dress, or method and still miss the principle. Discover what made the result possible. Was it concentration, service, persistence, accurate knowledge, organized cooperation? Adapt the principle to your own field. Obsession must remain original enough to think. A desperate imitator follows visible success after the advantage has passed. A creative man studies need, combines knowledge, and develops a method suited to present conditions. He respects examples but does not become imprisoned by them. Your purpose must pass through your own judgment. That judgment strengthens through solitude. Spend time alone with the work. Not isolated from counsel, but free from constant opinion. Let the mind wrestle. Let it form its own connections. Too many voices can weaken the authority of your central desire. But solitude must lead back to usefulness. Do not hide in thought forever. Return to people. Test the idea. Listen. Improve. Creative power moves between inner command and outer service. The inner world supplies vision. The outer world supplies evidence. Obsession joins them through action. And as you learn to move between them, your desire becomes more mature. It burns without consuming you. It concentrates without making you blind. It drives action without destroying judgment. It survives delay without becoming desperate. It welcomes correction without surrendering purpose. That is when obsession stops being a temporary emotional force and becomes a permanent system of self-command. Your time begins serving it. Your habits begin supporting it. Your associations begin strengthening it. Your failures begin instructing it. Your imagination begins feeding it. Your conduct begins proving it. The whole man begins moving in one direction. But one final test still remains. What will happen when the purpose begins to succeed? When recognition arrives? When the pressure that first awakened you begins to ease? And when the very reward you sought tempts you to loosen the disciplined obsession that made the result possible? Because it is not enough to force the mind into action before success. You must learn how to keep it awake after success, when comfort begins whispering that the fire is no longer necessary. And when comfort begins whispering that the fire is no longer necessary, you must remember that success is often more dangerous to obsession than failure. Failure keeps a man alert. Failure forces him to examine himself. Failure makes weakness expensive. But success can make him careless. It can persuade him that the discipline which carried him upward is no longer required. That is the beginning of decline. Do not let reward destroy the force that earned it. When recognition arrives, return to the purpose. When money increases, return to service. When the work becomes easier, raise the standard. When others begin praising the result, examine the cause. Ask what must now be protected, what weakness success may be hiding, and what new responsibility has entered your hands. A man must remain hungry without becoming dissatisfied. This is a delicate law. Gratitude says, I value what has been achieved. Obsession says, I will not allow achievement to become a resting place for the mind. You may enjoy the harvest, but you must continue caring for the field. The day you begin living entirely from yesterday's victory, tomorrow's decline has already begun. Keep the mind in motion. Continue studying. Continue asking. Continue correcting. Continue surrounding yourself with men who speak truth rather than flattery. Praise can become a narcotic if you begin depending upon it. It can weaken judgment, inflate pride, and make the mind resistant to correction. The man who needs admiration eventually protects his image more carefully than his purpose. Refuse that weakness. Let results speak, but do not become a prisoner of them. Your worth must remain connected to character, discipline, and usefulness. One success does not make you invincible. One failure does not make you defeated. Both are events. Your governing force must remain the purpose that teaches you how to use them. The obsession must also evolve. The first desire may have been to escape poverty, obscurity, or dependence. Fine. Let that desire awaken you. But once those conditions begin changing, the purpose must grow larger than escape. It must become creation, contribution, and mastery. Otherwise, when the pain disappears, the fire will disappear with it. A man driven only by pain becomes weak when life becomes comfortable. A man driven by purpose remains active because the work itself has meaning. He does not need misfortune to force him forward. He has developed inner command. That is the highest achievement of obsession. Not the money earned, the position gained, or the applause received, but the creation of a mind that knows how to move itself. Such a mind does not wait for inspiration. It gives itself an order. It does not wait for fear to create urgency. It creates priority. It does not require the world to threaten it before it becomes disciplined. It has learned that voluntary discipline is more powerful than compulsory suffering. So keep the fire, but keep it under law. Let obsession command attention, but let principle command obsession. Let desire awaken imagination, but let judgment choose the method. Let ambition increase action, but let service give action meaning. Let success enlarge your responsibility, not your vanity. Then your obsession will not consume you. It will organize you. It will turn thought into decision, decision into action, action into habit, habit into character, and character into achievement. You will no longer move only when circumstances push you. You will move because purpose has taken possession of the mind. And when the mind is fully possessed by a definite purpose, governed by discipline, and strengthened by service, no ordinary obstacle can hold it still for long. That is how you force the mind into action. You give it one command strong enough to silence every weaker excuse, and then you obey that command until the world is forced to recognize the result.